Okay. Um, I'm privileged today to have Mr. Irv Ashford, President of Community Affairs at Coamerica, with me today. And on behalf of Jesuit, I'm glad to have you. How are you doing?
I'm doing well. How are you?
I'm well, thank you.
Good.
So first, would you mind telling me a bit about who you are?
Okay, so you gave me an upgrade just then. So I'm Irvin Ashford Jr. I'm Senior Vice President of External Affairs, but I'm also the bank's Chief Community Officer. And I work for Coamerica Bank. I've been with Coamerica Bank over 20 years.
Okay. And so you faced adversity and hardships that many people don't experience in your life. How has that shaped your life and your career?
Well, that's a kind of a trick question. I think lots of people face adversity. Many people may not have faced my sort of adversity, but what it's done to shape my career is probably giving me a, a level of stick-to-itness, a kind of tenacity.
Yeah.
Want to give up, I kind of like to see an end result. It gave me a ferocious attitude to achieve goals, not only for me and for my community, my corporation, my family. So I think the adversity helped shape and mold me, and it helped me to approach future adversity with a level-headedness, calmness, succinctness. I don't get too frazzled too easily.
Okay, that's a great answer. So you've grown up during an interesting time in our country, definitely. So while much progress has been made during the civil rights movement in the 1960s, poverty, income, and equality and racial tensions still seem to exist. Why do you think that is?
Well, I think, you mentioned that I grew up during an interesting time. I can tell you, yes, I grew up during the 70s and 80s is when I was, your age. And what you realize is change is very difficult. Change is very hard. So change for individuals is difficult and hard. Change for communities is difficult and hard. I think change for the United States has been difficult and hard fought. And so, some of the same things that I face as a young person, you see young people today face, i.e., the effects of ism, right? Racism, sexism, whatever ism you want to choose, still exists. Why? Because change is hard. I think over time, while things are much better than they were when I was a kid, that also tells you how bad things actually were when I was a kid, right? I mean, things are better now, but I faced some things that my grandparents faced, and I think my sons will face some of the things I faced. And so growing up in whatever time you grow up in, we all face some sort of adversity. We all have some sort of challenges. I think the challenges are just different depending on what perspective, area, community you live in or are from.
It's an extremely good answer, I believe. Over time, I hope a lot of things change in our community, and it's a very important topic to focus on. And so another question I wanted to ask you, how are you addressing these issues, and how should we adopt a better mindset to help those that are most impacted by all this isms and everything?
So from a corporate perspective, Coamerica has taken the perspective that we want to raise expectations of not only what our bank could be in the community, but we can impact the community to be the best selves that they can be. So our motto is to raise expectations of what a bank could be. So as you know, we've been in a pandemic for the past 6 or 7 months, 8 months. And during the pandemic, we also had a lot of social unrest that was sparked by the death of George Floyd. But the social unrest, the issues regarding race have always been with us, right? So before there was a George Floyd, there was a Trayvon Martin. Before there was a George Floyd, there were the countless other people who died, some would say, and most would say, and I would say needlessly, at the hands of police. That's always been happening. That happened when I was a kid, my father was a kid, when my grandfather was a kid. I think the difference now is the advent of social networking technology, where we all get to see it. So before, what would happen is something bad would happen and it was just a rumor, right? Now something bad happens and we all can see it. So Coamerica has taken the unique and I think perspective in that, because we want to raise expectations of what a bank could be in the community, that means we get to do some fun and interesting and some hard things. So with regards to the pandemic, we helped fund
Are you there?
we're meeting immediate needs that were caused by the pandemic. So these needs existed before the pandemic, but they were just kind of exacerbated as a result of the pandemic. And so what I'm talking about are food insecurity needs, needs for young people to have access to school supplies. So what we've done is we first have taken care of Maslow's needs, meaning the basic needs for our community, and we've partnered with community partners to do so. Just over the weekend, we partnered with the DeSoto Independent School District and a local nonprofit to provide back to school materials to over 2,000 people that go to DeSoto Independent School District. We help other partners provide PPE in communities we live, work, and thrive in, etc. And then Coamerica also made an $8 million commitment this year to help offset the effects of the pandemic. And much of that money went to support small businesses in the markets we serve. And so we were able to make investments into community development financial institutions, CDFIs, and what they do is they make loans to small businesses, and they're able to get money out on the streets quickly. And as you know, there have been a lot of hurting small businesses that have come about as a result of the pandemic and all of the shutdowns. And so that's one way we as a bank have given back. What we've also done is we've created a series of small business boot camps around the country where we teach basic financial and business principles in partnership with various nonprofit groups. So we may have partnered with a chamber, a Hispanic or Black chamber, or the Urban League, or a local nonprofit to help teach small businesses how to get past the pandemic so that small business owners can brush up on their skills. We've taught a series of financial education classes, not only to adults, but to young people such as yourselves all around the country, because now would be the time to figure out how to tighten your belt. Maybe you need to budget a little differently than you otherwise would budget. So what we've done is we've basically said we understand that the pandemic, the social unrest, and all of the ills and effects have had a disproportionate impact on the communities we serve. So we want to have a disproportionate impact in trying to alleviate the stress and strain for our customers and our communities.
That's great. I think Coamerica is doing a great job of that. And that's very, very good. So another question. So I read that you were predominantly raised by your mother and grandmother. Is that correct?
So I was raised by the village. So it was a lot of people, right? So when I was very young, up until about 13, I was raised by my mom, my grandmother, and my uncle. And after 13, because I was fortunate enough to get a scholarship to prep school, I went to the boarding school in Bell Buckle, Tennessee. It's called the Webb School. The Webb School is the oldest continuous running private school in the South. It's started in 1870. And so I was fortunate enough to get a scholarship to go there. And because I went there, I was lucky. And so there I was, in other words, taken in by a family of one of my fellow students. And from that point on, the village helped raise me.
That's good. How do you think that they impacted your life and in the way that they raised you?
Well, I think in sum total, everyone gave me bits and pieces. I think just like you and your parents, you don't get everything from one parent or one person. You get bits and pieces from various people, right? You get something from your dad, something from neighbors, something from your friends, something from adult figures in your life who when you don't want to listen to your dad, right? And they tell you the same thing your dad says, it just sounds better from them.
Yeah.
So I think I've been lucky in that I got little bits and pieces of things that made me me from various people. So for example, my uncle gave me a sense of compassion and honesty. He's the kind of the nicest, most compassionate, honest person that I know, right? My mom gave me, a stick to itness because my mom is extremely results oriented. If she puts her mind to something, she's gonna do it. My adoptive folks in Tennessee, they gave me, a spirit of I could do anything, particularly if I allow education to guide the way. So, they were the ones that told me and gave me certain expectations with regards to school's performance. And they told me so long as I did well in school, then I'll probably do well in life. And they gave me, a view into the other side of life. So I grew up predominantly around Black people and Hispanic people in New York City. And when I went to boarding school there, I was predominantly around white people, right? And I was around wealthy white people. So those two worlds are different. They're vastly different. However, in many ways, they're the same, right? So people want to, everyone wants to have an environment where their kids or children get to thrive and grow. You want to live in a safe place, a nice place. You want food to eat. You want some entertainment. You want to have some sort of religious base or spiritual basis. That's the same whether it's in a Black household, a white household, a poor household, a rich household, right?
Yeah.
What I got from the various contributors to my village is little bits and pieces from all of those different places, all of the dynamics that made me who I am today. I think it's been very beneficial because I've had a bird's eye view in multiple worlds, and most people don't have access to multiple worlds.
Yeah, that's a great thing to hear, and I'm glad you had a good upbringing with a lot of different role models in your life. And so I understand that you have a son, correct?
I do.
So what life lessons have you instilled in him? as your child?
So actually, I have 3 kids. I have a daughter
Okay.
who's in college, an older son. He's not that old. He's 23. He just graduated college. He finished in 3 years, and he now works for the CDC. And I believe you're talking about my youngest son, who's 14. He's a freshman in high school. And so what I think I've taught him, one is that he's an Ashford. And so there are certain expectations that we have as a family. And these expectations are rooted in kind of sticking to your word, keeping your word, doing the best that you can do. I don't expect perfection, right? I expect effort. And so, I think with my son as well as my other 2 kids, what I wanted from them is just to give me the best that you got. Try the best that you can, give forth effort. And however the chips fall after that, we can all accept it. I think I've taught my youngest son also a sense of belonging to the community. So ever since he was a little kid, he would go with me. And when I went to go play Santa Claus in some underprivileged community or people that just needed a little extra help, he would go with me and be an elf. I wanted him to see what it was like, everything that's so easy for us to come by isn't always easy for others to come by. So I wanted him to have an appreciation of it. And so since then, my son has, volunteered at food and soup kitchens and donated his old clothes to people that needed a little love and a little extra stuff. So I think what I've passed on to my youngest and all of my children is just the sense of we're part of the community. We don't live outside of the community, right? There's no them or us. It's all us. And so, I hope that I pass that along. That there's no they. There's no them over there or those people. All that exists really is us. And so we have to take care of one another as best we can because there's only us.
Yeah. Well, as you know, Jesuits, or you might not know, but Jesuits' motto is "Men for Others." So, a question for our community and the viewers watching this: what can we do as a community to help and give back to those in need?
So I think that's a really good question. And as you can imagine, I get asked that question a lot. I think the first step is to simply do whatever it is you can do. I think oftentimes we get caught up in television, social media, and media, and you think you got to do some grand gesture to make an impact or make a difference. So I can tell you that's not the case. You can do small things like a food drive. Just have, people bring in cans to make a donation to the North Texas Food Bank, right? Or it can be teaching math or science or helping kids with their homework and some after school program. Little things like that. I remember when you were a young boy, you you went to Austin Street homeless shelter and you did some work there, and so those were people that are truly people that needed our help, and you were there. So everything little and big that we can do, I think if you do it, it makes a difference. It's kind of like a pebble going into some water. There's a ripple and there's another ripple and another ripple, and you never know how you're going to impact someone's life, right? So, let's say the first thing you can do is be present, show up. Second thing you can do is find out what's needed. That means ask people what they need, not tell people what they need. Do some research. And then thirdly, just you kind of gather together and it's easy to do thing with one person, but it's easier to do it with 5 people, right? So you get your friends together and all of you kind of decide, okay, we're going to do something. And I think if Jesuits' motto is to be men for more than just yourselves, then I think that'd be easy for you guys to do, right? You do that anyway.
Yes, sir.
I would tell you that during these times, again, we're going to take it back to the pandemic. You know, one of the things you can do is encourage your people to wear masks, wash their hands, right? Because you can't contribute to society if you're sick or if you're going to make someone else sick, right? And I think as leaders in the community, as future men that are going to go out into the world, I think you guys wearing masks probably says more than if I wear a mask, right? Because people will look at you, and young people will see you and say, "Oh, okay, the guy with the tie on, he's got his mask on. Maybe I should have my mask on too." And it brings me back to what I mentioned to you earlier. There is no them. There is no they. There is no over there. There's those. I mean, that really doesn't exist. So if nothing else, the pandemic has shown us that there's really only us. And actions that are taken by one of us can impact all of us.
Yeah. That's great. I think our community definitely needs to come together and help those in need, because it's definitely something that's going on in the world with coronavirus and a lot of other issues that we just need to come together and help those who need it the most. So thank you for your time. Those were all my questions, and I appreciate you coming on here and letting me interview you.
All right. So why'd you want to interview me?
Well, I thought that through your life story and just everything that you've been through and how much you're with Coamerica, you guys are helping out a lot of people in need. I think you're a good person to ask these questions to, because you have personal experience. You have a lot of experience with people who need what they don't have, and I think it's good to ask you those questions.
So what do you think about what we've done? You clearly you've done some research, right? You probably read Coamerica's done X, Y, and Z. Have you?
I've read a little bit about it, yes, and obviously learned more things after you've talked to me. But
okay, so what you should do is go and look at it, right? Go read. All you got to do is Google my name in 2020, right? And you'll see a bunch of stuff that was done.
Yeah.
But and you're a reporter, so I assume that everything is still on the record. But what I would tell you is, nothing can be done with just Coamerica, right? This is the problem is bigger than Coamerica. Coamerica has and will always do its part, but Coamerica needs you, your parents, your students, everyone needs to contribute. So if you're going to take something away from this interview, just remember what I said about there is no them, there are no those or they. There really is only us. Yeah. And I think if we all kind of remember that and that allow that to kind of guide your actions, I think you'll avoid, kind of the mistreatment of other folks or apathy, right? Because it's easy to become apathetic when you're thinking, well, it's not me, it's not my problem, right? It's their problem. Yep. But if you adopt it, there's us, and the ripple effects of having too many people without, how does that impact me? I think, you're going to be well on your way to be a contributor, even more than you're contributing now.
Thank you. Some great words of wisdom.
All right. Thanks a lot. When's the story going to be out?
Well, I'm going to send it to my editor for the roundup, and they're going to publish it eventually, probably in a week's time or maybe less than that. So a couple days, depending how fast I can edit it.
All right. Let me know how it goes.